Hello everyone, this is Gail from Gail's Upstairs Studio. I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to work on a little something that I used to do all the time, and that is repurposing jars. I have a pickle jar here that, to prepare it and to get all the labels off of it, I put it in a sink full of very hot soapy water and let the labels soak, and then it was easy to bring off. And then I spray painted the cover. I scuffed it up with sandpaper first, and then I put a matte black finish on it with spray paint. I used to do this all the time and make all kinds of things out of it. Jars, I used to save pickle jars, spaghetti sauce jars, baby food jars, and make containers out of them. And I would screw a hole through the top of the cover, and I would go to Home Depot or Lowe's and find knobs to screw in so that it looked even nicer. This time I'm going to reuse it for a little different purpose. I'm going to turn it into a little bit of a little fairy light situation for the coffee table that sits out on my patio. And I thought you might like to see how I do it. I've gone through how I get paint to stick, what paint I use, and all of those things in the previous video, which I can link in the description below. But today there was one more trick I wanted to show you. When you save jars, usually if it is a food jar, it'll have the expiration date printed right on the glass, and it's waterproof. So how to get that off there is a question I have gotten in the past, and so I thought I would address that. And it's very simple, and I'll show you how I do it. I'm going to set this up. This is a Q-tip, and this is a little bit of 100% acetone fingernail polish remover that I've put in the cap that came on the bottle, and I just dip my Q-tip in there. Just a little bit, doesn't take a lot, and I don't know if this is going to show, but I can just rub the Q-tip over the writing and it lifts it right off. And you can see it has come off on the Q-tip. And then I just take a paper towel and I wipe any residue, and then we're ready to go. So what I'm going to be using today, besides the jar, is 4 different colors of multi-surface paint from Folk Art and a variety of brushes. And my thought is that I am going to paint a field of daisies going all the way around the jar, and it will be pretty dense paint down here, and then the daisies will come up through that way. And the reason why I want the paint very dense down here is I am going to be using this battery pack with fairy lights on it, and I'm just gonna, it's on a timer, so I'm just gonna put the box down on the bottom and thread the string of lights kind of coming up around, and that should work. We'll see what happens. I have filled my jar with paper so that you can see what I'm doing a little easier without seeing all the way through the bench, and we'll get started. Just wanted to kind of shout out this kind of brush. You haven't seen me use it a lot, I don't think. This is called a scruffy brush, and I have it in a couple of sizes from a couple of different brands here. This is a small one. This is a big one. And you will see how I use it, but it is a nice thing to use to kind of make some dense coverage on your glass. And it's used a little differently than any other kind of brush that I use. So, and I have my water bucket over here to the side. Let's get started. I have poured my paint out on this pad of palette paper, and it works very nicely for me. And I'm going to dip my scruffy brush in water, and then I'm going to pat it out so that there's no extra water, it's just damp. That's important. We want the paint as thick as possible on here for what we're going to do. And I just leaf it out like that to make it so that it's nice and big. And I'm going to go with sap green and maybe some of this, I think it's called fresh foliage, and some white. And I just put it on different areas of the brush. And I'm just tamping it a little bit. I think I want a little yellow. There we go. And we're going to do this down on the bottom of the jar. I'm going to go right from the edge, try not to flip over to the bottom, but right from the edge up to about right here. And we're just going to dab. And we're going to stay pretty light, and there's plenty of paint on there, so plenty is going on the glass. And we're not going to be a straight line, we're going to go up and down. And what this is going to do is this is going to look like a field of wild daisies when I'm done. And this kind of just gives the impression of there being very dense grasses. We're going to go all the way around, trying not to lay the jar all the way down on the surface so that it doesn't leave paint on the bench and then come off the jar. And I'm just reapplying paint on my brush. We want a variation of color every time. I got a little bit too much yellow in that one, so we're going to go back into white. Some more sap. Go. And you want to move your brush around. You don't need it to be going the same way every time. We want lots of variation of color. And you will see in a minute that I did get a little bit on my bench, which is not a big deal, and I'll just check the glass to see where it came off, and if I need to reapply it, I will. Do that right now. See? Still wet. So it will come right up, and I'm going to go ahead and take my paper towel and wipe around on the bottom to take care of anything that might have been on the bottom. And this is what we have so far. And it's just a little field going all the way around the jar. And I'm going to touch up a little bit right here. I would like to have it be so that you can't see any of the jar on the side. I'm sorry if I'm getting out of frame. Yeah, I'll go all the way around again to show you. And at this point, we're going to let it sit and dry. And actually, before this completely dries, I'm going to come in with this little angle brush, and I'm going to just work a little bit of grasses here and there through, so it doesn't pull. It's still wet, so it won't pull the paint that's already down up. That's something that you kind of work against when you're painting on glass, because it's a slick surface. It will easily pull up the paint underneath it. But while it's still a little wet, we're going to go in and put some grasses in, pull up some of the wet color into the grasses so that it all kind of looks like it is part of what I've already put down, if that makes sense. And I'm not laying it down on the table right now because I don't want to pull any paint off the bottom edge. And we're just kind of coming up over and past the edge that we already put down, and that kind of helps soften that edge a little too. Gives it a little bit more dimension. And you can still see parts of the layer that we already put down, and we're just going to kind of keep adding down here. It doesn't really matter whichever way you would like to do it, but this just makes it a little more realistic looking, even though realistic isn't what we're going for here. And not in a straight line, just kind of finding little spots to add a different texture to. And see, they're not all the same color, they're not all the same shape. And we're going to set that down and let it continue to dry. Okay, we are dry, and the only reason that I took the time to dry this is so that I could lay it a little flatter to do the next step and not pull any paint off. If you weren't concerned about that, if it was a smaller object and you were doing it in your hand and you could hold it all the way around, there's no need to let things dry in between. But where I want to be able to set it down, I let it dry in between. And now we're going to do daisies, simple ones. And I am going to use this brush. It's that smaller scruffy brush to do the centers, and we're going to do that first. And I'm just going to go into some white and yellow, and then a little bit of that green. I want it to be more yellow. All right, and we're going to, there's many ways you can do it. This is the way I'm doing it. I'm just going to tap, tap, tap. That one's probably going to be so that the petals will be just down here. And then we'll do a tap, tap, tap here. This one will be a full one. We'll do another full one right up here. Do, like I said, there's many ways you can use actually just a flat brush or the corner of a flat brush or a fine liner to just dot in a little yellow if you wanted to. You can do the petals first, but for this I am going to put all the centers down at once. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I was in frame. Okay. And we'll do a couple down here, just little ones. And remember, you don't have to, I have decided I don't like that. You don't have to do it symmetrically, and it's better if you don't. We'll do a nice big full one here. Do a tap here and a tap here. Tap there. And a nice full one here, and we can change this around as we go. That scraping you're hearing is me scraping the paint out of the brush and squeezing all of the paint out and then reforming it. It's kind of important to do that with scruffy brushes. Now we're going to work on our petals. And my white is getting a little dirty up there, so I'm just going to put a little bit of fresh. And you can shade your white petals. I'm not going to on this particular one. I'd like to have it nice and bright white. And I'm going to use this filbert. I don't know, it's a just a brush that I got off Amazon. I can't really pronounce the name, but it's a size 8 filbert. And I'm wetting it down first and then patting it off. And we're just going to go pure white. We're not going to double load the brush. We're going to work it in. This is an old one-stroke type tip. You want your paint to be worked down into your brush, like 3/4 down your brush. Make sure it's nice and full of paint, especially if you're working on glass, because you want a good thick coverage so that you can't see through it the first time, because you really shouldn't try to layer over it because it can pull the paint. All right, so we're going to work from the outside in, and I'm working on the edge of the filbert brush. Very easy. And I made this center too big, so I'm going to work right down into it. And this is meant to be whimsical. So we're not going to worry about it being perfect. We don't want it perfect because most wildflowers aren't anyway. And this is going to be a very large one, which is not what my intention was, but we're going to go with it. And since it is very big, I'm going to make sure it's nice and full. I really did not mean for that to be big. So we're going for style. It's going to be a stylized daisy. Setting that down. And because I went into the center a little too much, I'm going to adjust that. We will pop that center right back out. I'm trying to decide, since I made that so big, am I doing that with all of them? I don't think so. We'll just see how it goes. This one I'm just doing the petals. This one I'm doing with just the petals on the bottom half. And it's okay if they pulls up some of that yellow and green. Gives it a little bit more dimension. And I believe we'll do this one kind of open-faced as well. Make these a little smaller. I believe I might have wanted this to be an open-faced one as well, but we're going to do a full daisy on this one, I think. But we're going to go a little smaller. And we'll do, you can also, if it's more comfortable for you, I'll show you, you can work out too. We'll do these ones out. I kind of like, when I'm doing a full daisy, I like to work in so that the petal is, it fills the area, and then you bring it down. It doesn't take as much area up on the center. But you can do it either way. It's your choice. We're just having fun. But if you're kind of limited on space, you can do it the way I just did it. I'll do another full-faced one. Kind of got too much paint on my brush now. Okay. I'm just using the rim of this as my indication of how big I want to get on this one. And you notice they're not all straight, like that one's not straight, and that kind of makes it look like the center is recessed a little, which that's the way it would be. So you don't always have to go straight. And then if you want it to really look like it's just open, do a couple of angled ones on the sides like that, and then make the bottom ones shorter. And that will make it look a little bit more like it's just opening up. And this isn't a long project or one that you should worry too much about placement or anything else. It's just a fun project. I'm putting it on my patio just for a little extra light and fun out there. And this would be great to do if you had a party and you wanted a certain theme. And these aren't going to all be even, and they shouldn't be. This is a very good project to just shut your brain off with and have fun with. And the nice thing about wildflowers, especially if you're seeing them from the distance, they tend to look a little bit more messy and abstracted anyway, so. it is the next day, and this dried overnight, and then I put it in my oven, my cold oven, and then turned it on for 350 degrees, let it go for half an hour, and then turned the oven off and let it cool all the way down to cold before I took the jar out so that the paint has been cured on. I have to apologize. This video was built as a tutorial type video, and I previewed it last night just to make sure it came out okay, and it turns out that the external mic I was using cut out right in the middle of it. So my son, when editing it, is probably going to have to time-lapse and put music over it. But you can at least see how I got here. And this is what it looks like. And now for the next step. I have my battery box with my lights, and it's on my white bench, so I don't know if you can see it very well. But the reason why I wanted the bottom to be very dense so that you couldn't see through it is I'm going to put this in the bottom. And I can do that because this is on a timer. So it has a timer function on it, and you can just push it to the timer, and it will be on for 6 hours, and it will turn off and come back to go back on 6 hours the next day. So I am going to, with the lights on, I'm going to set this down in the bottom, and I'm going to put the battery box on the door on the bottom. And I'm going to make sure this is nice and straight. This is on a wire, so I can coil it down in there and it won't all be a lump on the bottom. So let's see. I have changed the camera angle a little so it will be easier for you to see. I have the battery box down on the bottom, and I am just going to coil this down around and up through. There's like 30 or 35 lights on this string, so there's plenty. I just don't want them all clumped together. I want them to kind of be airy, kind of like lightning bugs would look. And then we'll put the cover on. There we have it. I'll show you what it looks like out on my patio. It's actually a rainy day today, so it'll be darker out there, and you'll be able to see what it looks like. And there we go. It's not completely dark out, but it's dark enough that I thought it would show up good out here under the gazebo on my back patio. And I think it's going to work wonderfully. And nothing is permanently attached, so I can pull those lights out. I can make one for each season. I can make one for a party. And it was basically out of stuff I had, and I think it came out nice. I haven't done a jar project in a very long time, so it was fun to do. I'm sorry that it didn't end up being a tutorial, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. And I'll see you next time.